Yeah, go early.
Okay. Good morning, everybody. John Sviocla here for GAI Insights. And I'm joined by Luda Kopakina, Adam Rappaport, and Ankaj Honda. Today, we are going to review a number of things, some really interesting new developments in terms of capability. And Ankaj, if you would start us off, that would be great.
Sure, John, just waiting for my screen to be up. Yes, it's here. So the first one, we have a big one today from OpenAI. So they have introduced deep research.
All right. Adam, what do you think about this one?
I think it's at least important news, potentially essential. So this is really, in many ways, the first entrant we've seen from OpenAI into their own agentic system that they're bringing to market. On top of that, it's also the first real glimpse we've seen of using not the O3 mini model that we announced the other day, but this is the full O3 model being put to work on deep reasoning. And this thing is pretty cool. It says it can accomplish, in terms of research tasks, in 10 minutes what would take a human many hours. And that's exactly what the promise of AI is. But they have a very, very intelligent system. Of course, I encourage people to look more closely at how it's designed, but along the way, it can change its plan, which is an important point, right? So it may start to do some research and disclose some information that has it choose a different tact in terms of achieving the outcome. So it's a good system. It's currently only available if you're paying the $200 a month. So I haven't tried it out yet myself, but it looks interesting. I think there's a lot of value. Specifically, there are people in certain industries, right, where they're doing a lot of research, and that's effectively what it's fine-tuned for, and that's who it's really going to be the biggest benefit for. You wouldn't run out and use this instead of GPT-4o, for example, which has all of these different tools available within it. It's sort of an extension of the reasoning models in O1, but specifically around deep research. Yeah. So important or essential?
Yeah, I was kind of leaning toward essential. What do you think, Luda?
Yeah, we've been talking about the search in general. And this is just an intensification of what can be found and how it can be structured as an output. So I thought that it is at least important, if not essential. So leaning towards essential, because we will be talking about it in the next article, but it is a demonstration of the power of the reasoning and agents come together in this power, right? So I just think that this is very important for our leaders to know that this is what's happening. So maybe essential.
All right. Yeah, I'm going to go for essential as well. We have the market leader here with one of their more important products. I know people are chipping away at OpenAI's lead, but they still are, certainly in the West, the biggest product in terms of use. And so we're going to go for essential. Ankaj, next.
Before you go, John, I think so Perplexity was my choice to go find articles and put them together in a cohesive manner. But this one might be outstripping it, actually. So I think they are much deeper than Perplexity. We'll have to see.
Yeah, it's a real competitive threat to them, I think, in certain areas.
Yeah.
Certainly a punch back by OpenAI.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else?
No.
Essential. All right. Let's go, Ankaj. Next.
Okay, the next one comes from Ethan Mollick, and it talks about the end of search and the beginning of research.
Yes, when I was an academic, I remember saying they don't call it research for nothing, right? It's that old adage: you copy one thing, you have a master's thesis; copy 3 or more, you have a PhD. All right, Luda, what do you think here?
I actually thought this one is essential read. Ethan, as always, looks at the trends and puts them together in a very well-defined and quite easy to understand way. So what he's talking about here is related to what Adam just nicely reviewed, right? Is how reasoners and like O1, O3, R1 are coming to fruition In addition to the other trend, like we've just seen in the search or in the agents, right? Creating those specific vertical agents that are reasoning much better than it used to be. So he's essentially saying that we are at the next level of this revolution, and he takes examples and walks you through, gives you the output. So, and it's not a long article, but you get an understanding of what's actually happening. So I think it is essential.
All right, Adam, where'd you land on this baby?
I was essential as well. I think it's a great article from Ethan. It brings together the very important concepts that every AI leader needs to understand right now. If anyone is wondering why the news out of OpenAI was such a big deal, this article is the perfect answer to that question. So for people who are trying to understand the significance of this is an absolute must read, and then they're going to be right across it. So it's a perfect accompaniment, and I think they go hand in hand.
All right, I can support essential here. Ethan being articulate in the important points and being terse as well, always a good thing. All right, hey Paul, good to have you.
And just to pull it together, good morning, Paul. The key thing here is that we have agents and we have this reasoning, and it's when you put the two of those together that you can solve these really complex tasks. And we're just at the very beginning of that, as Lida said.
Yeah.
Yes, great stuff. Paul, anything to say here? We're giving first two. We got essential for deep research, and we also have essential here for our friend Ethan. Do you go with that?
Yeah, both of them. And deep research. I did another hour on that last night. It's really it's impressive.
And then it's deep research time. It's like dog years, so that hour is worth 400 hours.
That's right.
All right, Ankaj. Next, constitutional classifiers.
Yes. The next one comes from Anthropic, and it talks about constitutional classifiers defending against universal jailbreaks.
Yeah, we had this for you and me, Paul, here. Do you have an opinion on this guy?
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. I think this is optional for the leader, and this is nuances down in the plumbing. Optional.
Yeah, I was leaning more toward important. I think that their notion of being able to create constitutional ways to look at whether or not a model is behaving correctly, and they have this wonderful phrase, the responsible scaling policy, and I think they're got with their constitutional classifiers. I mean, they were able to have hackers go at it for about 3,000 hours and weren't able to break in. That doesn't give me a lot of comfort, given the fact that we have things like deep research, which obviously the deep research's first cousin is deep hacker. That's going to be 24 hours a day poking around, coming up with new ways to do things.
But it's also just with. I mean, it's just within Anthropic, right? So if more and more companies using different models in their deployments.
Yes, no, but I'm just saying their notion of basically having I think of it as having a moral code that then gets put into a framework that they call constitutional classifiers, as ways to combat jailbreaks and other malicious activity. Anyway, I thought it was I could be convinced of optional. I was rating it more important. What do you think, Adam, Luda?
Adam, go first.
Yeah, sure. I don't want to derail the conversation too much, but I feel like the whole notion of ensuring that models can't be jailbroken is going the wrong direction. It's putting these things in a cage and trying to control and contain them in a way where, with emergent properties, there's no way we can understand whether or not we're going to be able to do this successfully. And their approach was useful, but marginally so at best, and at a tremendous expense. It's important to research this, especially as we continue to have these more powerful models, and we don't have any sense of what alignment even looks like or how we could achieve it. Or how we can ensure that these things are going to be benevolent as they take control of more and more of our systems. So jailbreaking is important, but I mean, I could probably support important on this for that reason. But I personally feel we need to be taking different approaches.
Adam, but don't we have this already? Don't we put little pills in all our human-based workers, and they're always ethical? They never do insider trading, and if they only be perfect, we'd have the perfect organization here. So,
Yeah, it's a dream come true, right?
Well, not to, recapitulate 10,000 years of moral reasoning, but don't we run that back to your thing, Paul? In a sense, we do. And that pill is called conscience, and that pill is called religion, and that pill is called, so
fair point.
I guess,
point. Yep.
Yeah. I think what I find frustrating about Silicon Valley is that they are wading into moral reasoning and don't want to take advantage of any of the, that multi-thousand-year history of some of the
all the thought leadership on the subject.
Yeah. Remember we had that one article that was really well researched that had a bunch of the stuff around moral reasoning and this relationship to these things. But look, an algorithm has got an embedded morality, whether you want to cop to it or not. You know what I mean? So anyway, Luda, what did you think?
Yeah, I would put it as optional. Anthropic is leading this field in trying to push out techniques and the like to actually safeguard from jailbreaks and the like. And this is a very, very important for LLM developers, classifiers that will actually prevent more jailbreaks. But it's not for the general leadership. It's underneath this whole structure is evolving. And Adam, I agree with you. We don't know where the end objective is, right? And it can't what's success, and we can't measure it quite yet. But it is a very important step in the direction. But for the general AI leader, I don't think this is that important yet.
Alrighty, we're going for optional. We don't care about morality. The heck with it. All right. We're with the times. Let's put it that way. We are modern people. Okay. Next on, guys.
Okay, the next one that we have talks about the virtual lab where AIs and humans collaborate.
Yeah, very interesting here. We've got this notion of trying to create situations where we can get some scientific or at least some experimental activity going on here. What do you think, Adam?
I was on the fence between optional and important. So in a way, this is kind of like a model similar to what we're seeing out of OpenAI with deep research today on that theme, right? It's an agentic network. It's a pretty clever one. There's a principal investigator, and then there's a critic, and then there's specialists. I mean, in some ways, this isn't too different as well from a mixture of experts model. In terms of just calling the things for inference that you need that are the specialists where you need them. It's a good use case. It's a powerful use case. It's a pretty straightforward use case, actually, and they're just touting the tremendous benefits of it. And they are quite accurate in that, in terms of how it can really effectively simulate entire research agencies and solve problems and enable that kind of interaction that you need between these multidisciplinary experts to solve some of the really hard problems that are coming out, like as they mentioned there with regards to COVID-19 and the like. Some big problems that need expertise in multiple areas, and it's great that we can build systems now that do that. It doesn't get too much into the details beyond that. It has one nice diagram that's probably worthwhile, but I was on the fence.
Yeah, let me try to push you off the fence into important. I really think that this has a little bit of, you don't put together the principal investigator. It kind of you ask the system to pull it together. The principal investigator and the agents that it needs, and the virtual review board, right? When they talk about what the results are and do it a couple of times with the virtual experts, LLM experts sitting there. So I thought this whole process can be applied not just to research in chemistry, but across the board. I loved this virtual lab when they introduced it, when we reviewed it originally, but now they've taken it to the next level. And you can essentially set up an environment of your company for a particular, in your industry, for a particular problem that you're trying to solve, with AI coming in as experts in your specific field. So I thought it's important, if not essential, to highlight that this type of an environment is available.
The one thing I would add, Ludo, is that almost everything you're describing I could do 2 years ago just with a very sophisticated prompt.
Right,
so
but
so
now
there isn't. I mean, the point is it's cleanly packaged and it's becoming accessible, and people are starting to understand the tremendous power of it. But you could say, act as an expert, find 3 experts that you're going to get their opinions of, and then evaluate their opinions. And you could literally just write a prompt that could do this almost 2 years ago. So I'm not sure what the fanfare now is about it, other than, you know, making people aware that that's possible.
No, exactly what you've just said. The sophisticated prompt, this actually avoids it. So they actually loop around to create those prompts that are critical to solve the problem. You don't have to do it anymore. So it's essentially getting us off this prompt engineering issues that people were not as good at, right? And getting the agents to actually do that. That's the critical piece of it. And besides, you as the LLM evolve underneath, right, the reasoning becomes better, the agent mechanics become better. That virtual lab helping you to prompt and orchestrate them is, I think, a big deal.
You know, it's interesting, when you think about what the analogies are, there's this guy, Don Norman, who came up with a book called The Design of Everyday Things. And it's this concept of affordance in it, which is how do you map from your mental model to how the thing works. And so, like, you never pick up a mug from the wrong handle or anything like that, but you can sit, you know, you can have a phone that, you know, has some kind of call forwarding. You don't understand how to use it, even though you use it every day. I think the affordance in co-intelligences is roles, right? Roles are to co-intelligences what the home page is and the back and forward arrow is to the browser. You know, I mean, it's the natural way to think about expertise. And so, so I think it's an important thing. And I'm going to be writing a board post on how One Digital uses the same kind of notion, but inside, and you hire people, you hire digital workers inside the company. So I hear you, Adam. For that reason, I was going to lean toward important. Paul, what do you think? You okay with important?
My vote's for sale. John, you have my chalk.
All right, babe. We don't need your vote, so you get no cash on this one, no crypto, no nothing. We're going important.
So it was so the pushing off the fence was successful then.
Well, not really. Adam is not necessarily convinced. Vivek is saying essentially supporting my point. So I think yeah. Adam, are you convinced?
No.
I don't have to be.
No, he doesn't have to be. He's saying this isn't even a democracy. I mean, even though I have to vote. Okay. All right. Next on, Coach.
The next one comes from McKinsey and talks about super agency in the workplace.
All right. Super agency in the workplace. I have a prediction, but I'm not going to share it in terms of where Luda's going to come out of this. Luda, what do you think?
Well, I was thinking optional when I saw this article.
Right.
Was it right? Was it right? That's what.
That's my guess. Yeah, my guess is optional.
But as I read it in each section, so the sections are on the left here. So they go through and explain, actually use their data to tell us what's happening out there in the market. And I think this is an important read, actually. So I ended up important. Let me tell you why. So in each section, they have a nugget that would help if you're struggling with one of the pathways, right? What's happening? you will find some wisdom here as an AI leader to push you forward. So the whole notion here is employees are ready, they don't have enough training, and you guys in the C-suite are not being bold enough in setting up strategies. And what's happening, we only have a very small percentage, 1% of or 5% of people having mature applications out there in the market. So they're trying to push the leader to think bigger, and that's a good message. The problem is, at the very end of the article, they present the 6 blocks of technology innovation. And, I was looking at it and said, you can be blocked in any of those boxes royally, right? In the process, in the data, in any of those boxes can have a problem. So it's not surprising, but I think it's an article that can push the leader to move forward. So that's why I ended up as important, John.
All right. Ended up as important, even though my prior was optional. I thought you were going to guess. I guess optional. What do you guys think here, Adam, Paul?
I'll go. I actually went through almost the same hero's journey that Luda did, honestly. So I ended up sort of optional adjacent on the important side.
Okay, we'll need to get somebody to break the thing.
Paul?
I didn't like the article. I do think, though, I'm very empathetic to AI leaders who see it and having challenges getting the rest of the management team to view it as well. So the stuff's coming from Kinsey. It's very light on case studies. I think there's better ways to get the pragmatic leader. So I ended up on optional.
Yeah, it's interesting. I ended up on important, maybe even essential, for one reason only, which is the fact that the people working for the leaders are way more ready for change. And I think that's huge. And we've talked about that anecdotally. This is the first data I've seen that says when we get up and we say, hey, look, people are dying for this stuff, they're doing it anyway, you have, phantom IT, the whole routine, and that you need policy, you need understanding, you've got to look at it.
Yeah, and John, I think on that point, giving that part of the article plus an article on the shadow IT to executives saying they're more ready than the leaders and they're using it like crazy, which is introducing more risk to the company. Here's DeepSeek here.
Right. Yeah, and anyway, so for me, that's easy, important, maybe essential. But yes. All right. Well, usually McKinsey's not that bad on verbosity, but here we have either the robot or the editor was asleep, but we have a good article here. We're going to go for important because of the data. Vivek said, wish he'd normalize this data to the size of the organization. Yes, it would be nice. A lot of things to normalize there. Maybe it's also function and so forth, but still, it's data. All right. Ankash, here we are. SFT versus RL.
Yeah, so this last one comes from Google and talks about reinforcement learning, generalizing SFT memories.
Yes, and for those of remember SFT is supervised fine tuning, RL is reinforcement learning. We've seen fantastic, advances in reinforcement learning. This article is kind of interesting. It says, look, reinforcement learning is really good at getting the model to improve, but at the same time, SFT is great for helping to tune the reinforcement learning. So I would put this as optional, although these kind of algorithmic and process innovations are really, the meat and potatoes of where the improvement's coming from. And then the power of reinforcement learning, when you look at some of the things like the autonomous robots and so forth, is interesting. I mean, we've seen some fantastic progress on that. And this is a pretty, approachable little article here. It is technical, but, understandable. But I was going to give it an optional. What do you folks think?
Yeah, I agree with an optional, even though it's a critically important observation backed with data for people who are in the space of LLM and training them. So it's a great advancement to demonstrate how these mechanisms actually improve reasoning and memorization and the like. So for the researchers or programmers in this space, it's essential, but for the general leader, it's optional.
Yeah, and Ludo, I had actually super optional. I mean, I think this is all innovation at the component level of these foundation models, which is to me like innovation at the carburetor for my car.
Right.
AI leaders just want a great car. They shouldn't be reading papers on the leading, fuel injection engine coming out of BMW and how that's better than Mercedes. And so great, so great for researchers and builders of foundation models, which AI leaders tend not to be.
Well, Paul, I agree and disagree with you. I think sometimes they need to understand what's in the guts of these systems and where the power is coming from and why. In selections of models, they don't need to read the formulas, but they need to understand where this algorithmic innovation is coming.
Why? I mean, do they need to understand GPU architecture?
Yeah, sure they do.
Yeah.
It drives their
here, Paul.
Of course they do.
I think the analogy I'd use, because
you gotta be deep enough so you understand what the economics are at the very
Otherwise you were superficial. You can't lead.
I mean, I think you're thinking about it where we've got, established car manufacturers, established carburetors, to use your analogy, all that other stuff. That's not where we are. We're back at the point where, I used to have a house that was owned by one of the Stanley Steamer brothers. We're back at the point where there were over 300 car companies in the United States. And if you were, let's say you were a shipping guy, running the shipping department of a beer company, you absolutely should know, how does the thing start? What are the engines like? What are the what's the carburation going to give me going uphill? Will it take will I be able to, get the barrels up there? That's what's going on here, man. We got 100 car companies,
Adam, you realize I'm only stirring things up for ratings. I'm just trying to get more people staying on our show late. Everybody want to watch a food fight. No, I think you guys make fair points.
Adam, you were trying to get in here. What's up?
Yeah, no, I gave up. There was too much. Paul threw that hand grenade right in the middle of the room, and you both jumped on it. That was great. I tried to, but there was no room. So I guess, Paul, the important point that needs to be emphasized here is that there was this big question about training time compute and if it would continue to scale. And the answer continues to be no. We're actually moving towards innovation in test time compute, and the big headline around that has been reinforcement learning. And this is really a next level of sophistication of that in probably what's the most important thing that's being developed right now. So I think it's more than the example you gave in terms of the car, but I would still say this article is optional for our.
So Paul, you got outvoted. That's
fine. It will be first time. But to Lucinda's point earlier here, so the implication is what for the leader? This might be a determination for which foundation model they prioritize or tell their team to prioritize.
The fact that there's going to be a 1.3 trillion parameter instead of a 400 billion is not necessarily where you need to go in terms of focusing on the roadmap in your strategy, right?
It's
you don't
the
just
choice
need
between
to go to bigger is better. There's far more refinement starting to develop, and they need to keep up with it.
So don't buy into the sales rep from X company that's saying my parameter model is the best thing and you were hurting your career, but not going with the highest parameter model.
Correct. It's an understanding of what tools are more applicable to what you're trying to do.
Yeah, and I mean, I imagine that. Look, I used to be in a lot of these things when I was a consultant. The AI leaders, they were going across the projects, right? And they're going through technical progress, business progress, right? Adoption progress. And then, so the AI leaders saying, and let's say a lot of these are going to have something around hallucinations and some level of quality has to hit. And the AI leaders saying, hey, okay, what methods are you using to improve that? Give me the benchmarks. Tell me how we're doing. How many false positives do we have and things like that. And I think that AI leader is going to be in there saying, hey, look, are you making sure that you're, using a combination of fine tuning and reinforcement learning? Check this out. But Luda, actually, Paul got us all stirred up, but he still ended up optional, baby. Just because we wanted super optional, and you and I went for optional. We
don't have a
as they say in golf, it's just what goes on the scorecard. It's not how you get there. Anyway, all right. The interesting question from Vivek: do I think enterprises will work on their own RL strategies, optimization, or post-train? Yes, I think that's certainly what we hear from Goldman, from their CIO. Certainly what we hear from Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan, in conjunction with some of their partners. So we already have good evidence of that, Vivek. Especially when it's a big import.
A great example also is the Phi models out of Microsoft, which are open source. They're going to industry and using reinforcement learning and fine tuning these so that these very small models can be incredibly powerful within a specific industry, and then just sharing with everyone else in that industry. So it's a very important thing to be across.
Yeah, and what I think will happen that we don't have yet is the tools to orchestrate that, right? The evaluators, we are seeing some evaluators happen already, but there will be a layer of tools to actually make that development much easier.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're in the red zone. We're past 30 minutes. All right, here we have essential from the first two: deep research, end of search, beginning of research, and then 2 importance and 2 optionals. All right, any announcements for anything?
Just remind everyone to please like and subscribe. And Luda, I think we've got a guest radio tomorrow.
Yes.
With Liz.
I think it's Liz.
Yeah.
Liz is coming, yes.
All righty. We'll see y'all tomorrow. Thanks, everybody.